Oh, welcome to Mentorship Live today. We have Scott Moniz, and he is going to be talking about breaking out of the comfort zone. And I love this topic because I don't think anything great in life has ever come by me staying in the comfort zone. But it's also the thing that held me back for a long time and sometimes still does when I'm facing something that I don't know how to do, or um, sometimes it seems exhausting, right? Like just to challenge yourself one more time to get out of that. So I'm really looking forward to the conversation today. If you don't know me, I'm Jacqueline Wittes, and I overcame a really long employment gap. And one of the reasons I do this is to just share insights and learnings. And I want it to not take as long for anybody else to have, if you're on the same journey or if you're just looking for career advancement, feeling like you're roadblocked. And Scott, would you like to do a quick introduction of yourself?
Sure. My name is Scott. I have a cat named Celestial. I like bubble baths. I listen to Metallica and Taylor Swift. And that's a little exercise about being uncomfortable because, having some of those chats, for me anyways, the reason I'm here is the same kind of reasons Jacqueline mentioned, which is learning from each other, having open conversations, having open discussions in which people are just authentic, where people can share uh, things that are troubling them or weighing them down or these roadblocks or this feeling of being stuck or trapped. Um, so, my history is in the software engineering realm. I have worked as an IT consultant for various industries for 10 plus years. Most recently, I was at a company named Seven Shifts, which was software as a service for the construction industry, so solving problems within that industry, scheduling, tip pooling, etc. And I met Jacqueline through networking on LinkedIn and connecting and having conversations and really pushing myself to just talk to anybody, to jump on a call with just about anybody. And in doing so, I've really seen the value and power of that. So a little bit more on that, that was difficult for me. Being someone who does suffer from generalized anxiety disorder, being somebody who in moments has a fear of judgment, a fear of failure, the imposter syndrome, which seems rampant. In a lot of my coaching calls, imposter syndrome comes up almost every second call. So, I just, I've really had this penchant for just being open, being honest and authentic, and just showing people that that's okay.
Yeah, I love that because authenticity is, I think the world is often hungry for it, especially in a social media world where a lot of networking is done in that way. There, like I was actually joking that one of my posts got rejected off of Instagram, and they said it just violated community standards. It was literally a picture of my hand, and I was making a point about individual fingers and rolls and stuff like that. And I was like, well, it was Instagram, so I guess my nails weren't painted enough. Because there is a little bit of everything is perfect here, and authenticity, I think, is often not stressed or highlighted. So I love that point. But let's talk about comfort zone. Like, how do we define this thing? I would assume most of us have some sort of idea of what we would think it is, but I'd love to hear your perspective. What do you think it is?
Sure. I think it's twofold. I think there are two sorts of comfort zones. So the one is, what I think is a true comfort zone where I'm happy, I'm content, I feel good, I'm comfortable, which is a good thing. But then there's the comfort zone, which is, in my opinion, depending on how we see what kind of comfort zone we're in, are we happy? Are we moving forward? Are we getting growth are we comfortable with the pace at which we're growing, etc.? That's, in my opinion, a positive comfort zone. But then there's the comfort zone where we become, I say, comfortable in the uncomfortable, where we're just comfortable with chaos and we're comfortable with stagnation and we're comfortable with not progressing or being stuck in a career or whatever it may be. Or maybe our relationship's not exactly what we want it to be, etc. And that, I think, is the negative comfort zone. That's the stuck, the trap, the this is what I know and I'm scared to move forward or out of this. So depending on which one we're talking about, the conversation goes very different.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the purpose of this meeting is the negative one where we
Right, like we're breaking out, so
yeah,
we probably don't
exactly.
want to break out of the great relationship and make it bad.
Agreed, agreed.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so if we're talking about the negative comfort zone, and I think we all probably have that on some level, especially if I know I attract a lot of people who are career pivoting or maybe trying to or coming overcome an employment gap. So if you're trying to uh, look at that and break free from it, like why is it important? You know, it yeah, I can just
I
put a question mark there.
Yeah, I think in a lot of my coaching and a lot of my one-on-ones and these deep conversations, uh, there's usually some deep-rooted issue, whether that be lack of confidence, lack of self-esteem, the feeling of I'm not good enough, the fear of failure, the fear of judgment. These things come up a lot, and most of my coaching calls, they take this winding path where somebody comes with this one topic, but we take this winding path, and a lot of them end up at the lack of confidence, lack of self-esteem, confusion, uh, lack of direction. I don't know where to start. I don't know what my starting point is. But when we start to find those, when we start to find those starting points, and we start to uh, make progress, make that forward progress, I think a lot of people see the end goal as the end goal. I want a new job. But the journey of getting there can be very rewarding. All the little things we learn, all the little things that we gain, all the perspective, all the new connections we make, all of those little wins, I think those are so important to our happiness. And when we talk about, I like to learn about a lot of things, and one of those was dopamine and reward systems. So dopamine being, quote unquote, the happy chemical, where
Mhm.
something makes us happy, we get a little dopamine spike, we feel good, and then afterwards that dopamine drops. The adrenaline and the dopamine drops, and then in moments we can go the other way where we feel really sad after that. So when we're looking for those big rewards, I think there's this big spike of happiness, and then when we don't get those big rewards, sometimes there's this big drop in satisfaction and happiness. So I think it's important breaking out of the comfort zone in small ways, in little steps, because we start to get that, hey, I can do this. We start to build the confidence, we start to find the motivation, and we start to see that these little things, it's not really about, yes, the end goal is getting a job, the end goal is your transition career pivot, but along the way there's so many little things that
Mhm.
are happening that are just amazing in my
Mhm. Yeah, I used to be a personal trainer in one of my job iterations. So I used to, it was very interesting because we're talking about also change management of ourselves in a lot of ways. And those small successes, yes, they give you that dopamine. And in fact, it's one of the dangers I think of being involved on social media a lot is because there's like one post will do fantastic and the next day I'll put more thought into the next post or write this long story and the interaction is so small and it's like, oh, nobody cares, and it's easy to forget about the small success the day before, but it's kind of, you're reminding me a lot of training our brains to accept the small changes and give us that satisfaction. um and I mean, really, like if today you're scared to post on social media or you think I have no story to tell, or and you're job searching and you're like, oh, I know I should be adding recruiters to my network, but what if they don't like me and what if they reject me? And so sending the connection request is very scary. Um, One of the cool things is when you start that little bit, it's like your comfort zone just gets a little bit bigger. Like, oh God, I did the thing, I survived. And I think we can probably bring in some of this on the self-reflection. So part of my theory as a personal trainer was do the small one good thing today that you're going to be proud of yourself for. What do you have any suggestions on like baby steps for breaking out of this kind of trap that we put ourselves in because things are so scary out there? It's true, it is
Yeah,
scary before you do it.
it can be scary, and it's funny because you mentioned the connecting and how that can be scary, and I've had people talk about that on LinkedIn or comment, and my reply was, hey, want to be friends? Because when we were children, that's how we made friends. You like Pokemon cards, I like Pokemon cards, let's be friends. You like this, I like this, let's be friends. But as we go into adulthood, I think that can be lost. We get caught up in the hustle and bustle of life, and that notion of just, hey, we enjoy the same things. Let's chat. It's I'm not trying to get a job out of you. I'm not trying to get something out of you. You're not trying to get something out of me. let's chat and see where it goes. And I think having that mindset, like that could be a baby step of, hey, how you doing? I saw that you do some neat stuff on your profile. I saw this comment about whatever topic, right? I'm going to talk software engineering because that's what I do. But hey, I saw this topic on design principles. I thought this was really well written. What do you think about this? And just having that engagement or just trying to make that little step and being aware that I think for me, we'll go into a few more little steps, but I think taking that step sometimes is realizing that for me, anyways, it was not everyone's going to like me. Some people will like me, some people will not, some people will be in the neutral realm. So, you look at sports, you don't hit every ball you swing at. You look at job interviews, you're not going to make it through every single round of every place you interview at. I think the first baby step is really just sitting down and doing a bit of thinking. Why am I scared? What lies am I telling myself? These open-ended questions that start with what and how. And we learned that in coaching too. And it's funny because I posted on LinkedIn, what lies, the only part of the only thing in the post was, what lies are you telling yourself preventing you from reaching your goals? And people in the comments said, maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I'm not where I'm supposed to be. Maybe I'm meant to be a teacher. And my response was, maybe shows uncertainty. What are
Mhm.
you, what are you dig? Spend that time and dig. So I think for me, some of the baby steps are thinking, trying to do that retrospection, that self-reflection. Two of the biggest ways I have been able to do this. Number one, taking a chat. And there's a scientific backing to that where it actually puts your mind in what's called the theta wave state. And that's a state where we're in our like creativeness. And that state happens when we're kind of shutting off. So just being under the shower water, eyes closed, and actually listening to my internal self, my inner voice, my inner critic, listening to the things I'm telling myself and trying to refute them. You're not good enough. Well, wait, I've done this and I've done this and had
Mhm.
successes here and I went to college and I graduated with honors. And kind of going through our life and saying, wait, I am good enough. I have done a lot of things. I have gotten jobs before. That was one thing that was big for me. And that state also happens when we're just about to fall, which leads into my next baby step. One of the best investments I've ever made cost me $3. It was a notebook and a set of pens.
I was about to say a journal, probably.
Yeah, and having that near my desk, and anytime I had these, invasive thoughts, or hey, I'm not good enough, or why am I doing this, or I'm tired, what's going on? Picking that up right before I lay in bed, picking that up, or if I'm having these moments, sit at the kitchen table with that notebook and pen and write stuff down. And for me and other people I've talked to, writing something down made it tangible. It wasn't a fleeting thought. It wasn't something that was there and gone and I never have to reference again. I could look through my journal and see, oh, I was feeling this way on this day. And then on this day, I was really excited. Another aspect to that, I think another baby step is the understanding that our feelings are temporary.
Mm.
And I say that because if we think about any feeling we've ever had, anger, rage, joy, happiness, calm, nervous, tired. We're tired, we go to sleep, we wake up, we're not tired anymore. We're angry, we might have an argument, 30 minutes later, we might go for a walk and we're not angry anymore. And understanding that sometimes these feelings of nervousness, the feelings of being scared, they will pass. So that little piece was big. This next one's not a baby step, but I think it's important to mention. If we are stuck in the past, if we're trying to deal with past issues, if we're trying to work through things and it's difficult, and it is difficult to unravel ourselves, therapy. I am a
Mhm.
big proponent of mental health services. I don't just talk about it, I am in therapy. I think it has been so beneficial to understanding who I am. It's been so beneficial to have an objective perspective. And not just therapy, but there are other things in the realm like coaching, advising, mentorship, where you can just sit and have a coffee and talk to people. And in doing so, I think when we let someone talk, a lot comes out. I've had people break down in calls because finally someone's sitting there quietly and they're able to just express themselves. And then you see in moments, I see the spark in their eyes. And I go, hey, your eyes are like right now, your eyes, you lit up a little bit, you're nodding, you're smiling.
Mhm.
And those are some of the cues that can tell me, hey, this person's really excited about this thing. And when we point that out, when someone points that out to us, hey, you just lit up when you talked about data analytics, or you just lit up when you talked about helping teachers. So not necessarily being in the classroom, being a teacher, but being a support for teachers. How do you feel about that? And then I shut my mouth, and then they start to go and go and go. So I think in our society sometimes people look for silver bullets or that one step. There are many little steps you can take that will
Right.
get you where you want to be.
And I would even say, like, okay, you may take these steps day after day after day, and you feel like you've got a pattern. And then one day that feeling, the temporary feeling comes in, and it's like, I've never made any progress. And we drama ourselves into like stepping backwards without acknowledging the how far we've come. And and I think like sometimes I can reflect on way back when I was a personal trainer and I was doing network marketing. I remember the first time someone challenged me to do a video. Um, and I was terrified. And I think that thing took me all day long, mostly because I was convincing myself I could get in front of camera and do like a stupid exercise that I do every day, in my own house. Like it's not even something I was uncomfortable doing. I was uncomfortable filming myself doing. And it's like because the comfort zone was like so tiny and I was so boxed in it. And then I survived. And I've said that even in this call earlier. I survived. I think I've tried to take all those videos off of the internet, but they're probably out there somewhere. Who knows? You can watch me do neck raises. Whatever. But now it's like all of those things that I did as a trainer, like to learn social media, to learn network marketing and sales and all these pieces. They built my story. And now it's like, oh, this morning I was like, today I think I should do a LinkedIn video, not just post, even though I had one scheduled and written out. I was like, well, I can reschedule that. And just got in. It took me 3 minutes to do. And that was the longest part was downloading the silly file and putting captions so that somebody without sound can hear it. It didn't even phase me anymore. And I think that if we reflect how far we've come on every little step of our journey, and I love your notebook idea, because even if you didn't write how you're feeling a day and you just wrote a journal of successes, like, oh, today I put a post out there. Today I learned this concept. And just document the things that you've done that maybe you were scared of. You could even rate like how scared you were when you started it and how did you feel after. And then you have your notebook of I've done hard things, so
I
therefore I can continue to do hard things.
I think that's an important point. Is I don't want to make it seem like journaling is strictly for the
Mhm,
negative, strictly for when you're feeling. If you're feeling proud, go write those things down.
mhm,
Write a little poem. Write something. Write a bulleted list. Made a post, got some views, interacted with some cool people, met this person, had some tacos tonight. Whatever makes you happy. And I think in doing so and celebrating those little wins, I mean, earlier you talked about I post and it got a ton of views and I was happy about that and the social media. And then I wrote this post and it only got X amount, like let's say 50. That's still 50 people,
people.
or even if it gets 2 comments, that's still 2 individuals who felt compelled enough
Mhm,
to use some of their time. And I think time is so important in society. It's one of our most precious commodities. They spent minutes of their time writing a comment for your post, good or whatever. If that comment was good or bad, regardless, your content was compelling enough for them to
mhm,
actually use some of their time.
mhm. Yeah,
So
I actually had that yesterday where I really was having trouble on my website because everything was bouncing to the 404 page. I had no idea where it was breaking, and couldn't find analytics to tell me what link was leading there. I just went out and asked for help, and the number of people that took time out of their day to just go click through my website for me, it was very touching. And I think like that's one of those where when I think I'm reaching nobody, or just yammering to the world. I even saw it in a meme like that. If you had 20 people like your stuff, that was 20 people that visited your office for the day and invested their life into your life, and it makes a big difference. So
yeah,
I love those reminders to not get wrapped up in numbers when it comes to
I think
impact, right? Like the impact is not
absolutely.
measured all the time by numbers, but maybe 10 years down the road, just like, I was in this mentorship live call on this day and something was said, and now my life is completely different. You don't know where that ripple is gonna go. So
Yeah, I think some of it too is appreciation and gratitude, where it's like appreciating those little things, appreciating that, hey, we woke up this morning, appreciating that, we went outside and it's sunny today. Even those little things can make a big impact in terms of our satisfaction, I feel. And when it comes to, hey, these people reached out to help me for no reason other than they wanted to help. They didn't want anything from me. Um, they were just good people. And I think over time, some of our experiences might have us feeling scared of people. And another baby step I've taken is saying hi to people on the street in moments, passing by someone and just smiling. A lot of people smile back, or just a head nod, or a good morning. And that's a small step, but I think it's impactful.
Yeah, I love that. That was one of the things I hated about just having to wear a mask all the time, is it made me stop smiling at people, where that was kind of a thing that was my MO, so to speak. It's like, yeah, they might be
Yeah.
having a bad day. Let me smile at them. So I love that point, is if masks are off, just smile at somebody. You never know the connection you can make with
Yeah.
that. But
And understanding that if you smile at somebody, they
I have just lost sound. That's not good. Hold on. I'm gonna have to change audio devices here, I think.
absolutely.
Feel free to keep talking about comfort zone. I'll catch up in a second.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah,
I'm back.
but I
All
think for
right.
me, those are examples of me breaking out of my comfort zone, because my comfort zone, funnily enough, has been public speaking or interacting with strangers, etc. I was comfortable with my family and the people around me, but when it came to interacting with complete strangers or standing up, I mean, if you told me 2 years ago I would be on this call speaking like this, I would have called you crazy or something. But it's just funny what happens when we start to take those small steps and they start to add up. Moments for me anyways, I started to understand, hey, there are really good people out here. The world's not as scary as I was making it out to be.
Yeah, I really like that. I had a question, then it went away. It was a great question. It was an amazing question. Oh, I guess it's one of those like, okay, here we go. Take a step out of our comfort zone. And it goes drastically poor. And we're like, I should have just stayed in my comfort zone. I'm sure we all hit those times in our life where like, serves me right for trying something new, or, something like that. How do you pick yourself up when it doesn't go quite according to plan?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think the notion of trying to find silver linings. Yeah, this didn't go as well as I hoped, but what did I learn? What were the positives in this situation? Reframing it into a positive, because a lot of times you'll say, oh, this relationship didn't go well, or oh, I lost my job, or uh, oh, my kid was sick, etc. I've seen posts on LinkedIn where, hey, my kid was sick, but I got to spend time with them. I got to take care of them. We got to chat a little bit. We got to bond a little bit, even though the situation wasn't ideal. I think there are silver linings in a lot of things. So I think understanding that even when we fail, it's only failure if we don't learn. If we don't try again and we don't learn anything from the situation, then yes, it's a failure. But I feel like any failure we have, there's two ways to handle it. Number one, hey, I failed. It is what it is. I'm done with it. I'm moving on. Number two, hey, I failed. What did I learn? How will I use these learnings going forward? How can I use this to improve my approach, my situation, etc.? That's been impactful for me when I mess up. I think when you talked about social media, there is that pressure to be perfect. We tend to compare ourselves to other people's lives, but no one has our life. Our journeys are all so very different. So sometimes just understanding that we are going to fail. It is going to happen. It's just inevitable, and trying to spin it into a positive.
Yeah, I really like that. And I think one of the things with Microsoft is our culture really is, growth mindset. And I know internally I have learned even to change my phrasing, not I failed at this, but look at all the learning I gained from this, or, and kind of framing it in that piece of it is wow, that was especially being new to a role. And I'm doing things I've never done before. I'm like, yeah, I involved the wrong stakeholders at the wrong time, and it put a whole lot of extra work on my plate that I didn't need at that particular time in the project, but I didn't know I didn't need it. And and a month later, I'm like, wow, I've made this snowball that I have to, or ball of yarn that I have to now unravel slowly and figure out what's what. But it was all learning, right? So next time I have that project, I'm not gonna go down the same path too soon without getting a lot more things validated along the way. And so I love your twist on, well, what did we learn from that, and keeping it moving forward. So again, I want to reiterate, if anybody has questions, feel free to pop them in chat, or you're welcome to come join the conversation at any point. All right, so we talked a bit about like self-reflection in this whole thing. So how can we kind of ask those hard questions of ourselves? And I'm thinking more of along the lines of blind spots. Like, we don't always see our own blind spots and might not realize we're in our own way. So do you have any tools or techniques where you've questioned yourself, admit that you might be the one holding you back, and then some of the self-talk to get back on the right track where you were headed?
All the time. That happens all the time. But in terms of tools, I think some of the things I talked about earlier, that introspection, the journaling, just asking those open-ended how and what and when will I do this? I want to do this thing I'm so passionate about. When will I do it? Holding myself accountable with things like calendars, blocking off actual time in my week to, hey, I want to learn this particular skill. I'm going to block off time and make it known to the people around me, hey, I will be busy during this time block. I need to focus, and I'm working on learning a new skill. So I think for me, being able to, number one, communicate with the people around us in moments they can help hold us accountable. Number two, holding ourselves accountable, scheduling things, putting it in our calendars, and finding ways to hold ourselves accountable, or finding ways to reward ourselves. Hey, if I complete this course, I'm going to have a small sushi dinner. That's been ways that I can kind of motivate myself and keep myself accountable to some of my goals.
Yeah, I really like that. I really like the blocking off calendar time, or setting goals, even on your side hustles, or learning, like, I know by this date I'm going to have done this thing, and that helps me. I don't know, maybe it's me being a deadline person, where it's like, okay, if I don't get there, then I'm going to have to get myself out of the hole of, oh, you failed your own expectation. So I might as well walk in that direction and like, for me, I'll take small measurable steps just to know, 15 minutes spent on this project is still 15 minutes that you made progress today.
Yeah.
That's really almost necessary for me, like trying to build online presence and courses and all that stuff, because my day job takes a lot of mental energy. So it's like, where do I find this time to make progress and deliver on the promises of, like, yes, I promise I'm going to deliver this thing to you, to people who are asking. But
I think time and energy is big, and deciding what we devote our time and energy to, and when. There's a book I read. It's called The Subtle Art of Not Giving a F Word.
Yeah.
It's a very aggressive in the book, but the biggest takeaway I had from it was, is this thing worth my time and energy? And I ask myself that question a lot when it comes to any situation. Is this worth my time and energy? Some things are, some things aren't, and I just have to let them go. So even when it comes to scheduling and time and energy, finding ways to determine if things are worth our time and energy. And when we start to make those determinations and we start to cut out things that we feel are not worth our time and energy, we, by extension, have more time and energy. And that can be put towards improving our relationships, working on our career growth, having that professional development time to learn a new skill, having a bit of that professional development time to network on LinkedIn and connect with like-minded people and people who are career driven. And when we connect with our peers in that way and people who are on the same journey, we start to see their little successes too, and that can be a motivation for us as well.
Yeah, I really like that as well. So we were stuck in our comfort zone. We decided to take a step out, and we find out the comfort zone expands, and then new things make us uncomfortable. We keep moving forward. What are some benefits to being risky, so to speak, in daring yourself to get out of the comfort zone and then doing it?
I think the one word that comes to mind immediately is the word opportunity. If we're in our comfort zone and we know what we know and we talk to who we talk to, I think we rob ourselves of opportunity. We rob ourselves of connecting with that one person who is going to be a really impactful friend, a really impactful support. Connecting with that one person who it's a friendship, but eventually, maybe a year down the line, they go, "Hey, we're hiring for software engineer. We're hiring for a project manager. You interested?" We rob ourselves of those connections, the human connection. So I think in being risky, it's funny because I think as we start to gain confidence and build risk, sometimes we go the other way where we end up being super fearless. And sometimes we do make a mistake and we get knocked back a step. But the benefits of being risky, I think in one word to sum it all up would be opportunity. So much opportunity comes our way when we put ourselves out there, when we're authentic and genuine. And there's the notion of too much information or sharing too much, and I do believe that does exist. But I talk openly about my mental health. I was so scared to, but in doing so, I have people go, "Yeah, I've had the same struggles. It's really interesting to hear you talk so openly about it." I think we start to connect with people on a deeper level. It's not this shallow, "Hey, what can we get from each other?" It's really, "Hey, I care about you and you care about me." And then I think through that we can have very mutually beneficial relationships with that that respect as a core. I think that's one of the biggest benefits of stepping out is forming deeper, caring, impactful relationships.
Yeah. I think I would add to that a little bit too. As you were talking, it just kind of reminded me of, and I did a post on this recently, is I have people in my life who are always using the phrase, "I'm thinking about doing," and it's almost like you can guarantee you're going to meet with them and they're going to tell you all the things they're thinking about doing. But never or rarely do I hear them say, "I did." And it makes me sad to hear that, because at the end of life, they will have thought about doing all these things that could change the entire trajectory of where they're going, or the impact. And this goes back to opportunity. The opportunity that was never fulfilled or realized because they only thought about it and were mastered by inaction instead of just it's so much while it's terrifying to do things like this, like Mentorship Live, or especially if I'm like, is anybody going to show up? Is nobody going to show? Every day, every time we have it, I'm nervous because until people start to show up.
Yeah.
And but I would have lived all of my life saying, well, I wonder what would have happened if I would have done this thing. I wonder what would have happened if I would have pursued getting back into tech. I wonder where I'd be now. And those sound like regret before that even has an opportunity to become regret. So I love that you can kind of answer that question. I'm not going to have to wonder what would have happened had I started this thing, whether it ends up fizzling out or blossoming bigger, who knows? But I will never have to answer the wonder what would have happened. And I think that's one of those things, if you consistently are stepping out of that comfort zone, you don't have to live in this state of, well, what could have happened? What might have happened? What?
Yeah, it's the what ifs. As you were talking about that, I mean, the word regret to loop pop into my head.
Mm-hmm.
What if I did this and what if I did that? Or I'm thinking of. And I think it's okay to think. It's okay to say
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking of doing this. That's the initial stages.
Yes.
But I think there's a balance of thinking versus doing. And you talked about, um, analysis or kind of thinking about things, but there's two paralyses. Paralyses? I don't know the plural, but two of them
We'll
I like to
go
talk
with
about.
whichever one.
One is analysis paralysis.
Mm-hmm.
you're thinking, and that thinking becomes, well, this, and then all of these branches. And in doing so, we don't take action because we're so stuck in all the little what ifs that may never even come to fruition. We're trying to map the entire journey out before even seeing what happens. And in my experience, no matter how well I try to plan things, in moments, there's always something that pops up and changes that. The other paralysis is fear paralysis, being so scared to step out of that comfort zone that we're just stuck in place. We don't move. And I think in taking some of those baby steps, we can start to try to understand, am I just overthinking things? I hear the word overthinking a lot when people talk about this stuff. Overthinking, overanalyzing, scared. Those are three things that seem to be common themes in my coaching.
Yeah, I used to, it's one of the things I advise people to do when they're trying a career gap or pivot is to declare a major, so to speak, like just find a job and go after that job and stop. Because there are a lot of things that look interesting in life, right? And especially if you're on job boards and looking at, oh, well, I could do that, or I could do that, or I could do that. Well, then you don't even have a focus on where should you be focusing your learning. If you have an hour a day to learn something new and you're like, oh, today I'm going to look at product management. Oh, well, no, program manager. Oh, well, how about a social media marketer? All of those require different skill sets. And if you're chasing all of them because you've done a little bit of something here on the job description, a little bit of something here, you're denying yourself the opportunity to narrow the focus and build the volunteer opportunities or any of those things that would lead you to the one where you're like, no, I'm going to be a PM straight up. I'm going to do this. And now I'm going to learn everything around PM, and I'm going to justify all of my past experience for volunteering or old jobs or whatever I've done, pantry management, whatever we want to call it. I'm going to figure out how that applies to PM roles. And it goes back to analysis paralysis. If you're looking at too many options all the time, they all look good. So why do like which one? And oh my gosh, what if I try the wrong one and it doesn't work? I think we could both speak to you can always try something else later.
Yeah. And I think that what if I try the wrong one and it doesn't work? I think that's the fear aspect. What if this fails and it bombs and I'm unhappy? But the analysis, I agree with you a lot. I work with a lot of transitioning teachers, and there is that notion of trying everything. And I think that's okay because in trying everything, you kind of see, oh, I really like working with data, or oh, I really do like project management. But I think it is very important, as you said, to focus in and really find what it is you want to do and then go hard. And understand that just because you have found what you want to do and you go hard, that may change over time. I've known a lot of people who go to college or university for one major and then a few years later they drop out and switch because we've changed and our goals have changed, our interests have changed. And I think that's the notion of having to be in the same career for our entire lives. Some people, they change and their interests change and their passions change. And I think that's okay.
Yeah. Or you may get in the middle of it and be like, this is not how it looked on paper.
Sure.
And sometimes, and I think also that the trying something new and getting out of your comfort zone defines the yes, I want to do this, and no, I don't want to do this. I heard some great advice to try something 10 times and see if you could picture yourself doing it the rest of your life. So, it was kind of like when I got to number 10 of Mentorship Live, I'm like, wow, I still really like this. I still enjoy it. I should keep pursuing, even if it's coaching on the side or anything, I'm always looking at how do I refine it now because I love doing it. But it took being terrified and asking the question, is anybody going to show up? Can I get anybody to come on the thing, or is it just going to be me talking? What's it going to look like? So I just like that notion of it's okay to change your mind later. It's okay to learn along the way that this isn't what I was doing. When I was learning cloud server administration, it kind of brought me more clarity that I'm not sure I like this side of tech, at least the configuring this. If now I'm like, I probably would enjoy PMing around it and looking at problems and helping solve those solutions. But the actual configuring a server, I was like, I don't think I like this. But had I not tried to learn it, I don't think I would have had that clarity either. So a lot of times I think I'm on just a journey for clarity, and then I'll be 80 and I'm like, still looking for like what Jacqueline wants to be when she grows up completely. But look at all these rich experiences along the way. So.
Yeah, I think that's important. I think one thing that comes to me is the notion of like grass is greener on the other side, where we a lot better than my current situation. And sometimes we go there and the grass is greener. Sometimes it's not. So I think, gaining that focus and even talking to people, this comes up in, a few mentorship lives I've been at with, I forgot who was on last week, but one thing that stood out to me was this notion of, I think it was Chris that was on, this notion of talking to people who do what you think you want to do. If you think you want to do project management, if you think you want to do software engineering, if you think you want to make websites, connect with some of these people. Say, hey, I'm just curious. I'm looking into this and I want to hear a bit about how you feel in your day to day, and how do you feel about a Zoom? I can send you a Starbucks gift card. A lot of people with that approach, I mean, personally, if somebody approached me like that, hey, yeah, sure, and don't even worry about the gift card. Let's have a chat. And I've done that. And I think other people on LinkedIn, I think LinkedIn is one of the best networking platforms for a career. There are so many good people who are willing to have that 15-minute chat with you. They'll send you a calendar like, here, book a time. And doing that can really give us insight, which I think that's what's needed to find that focus, insight into these various aspects and these various careers, and at some point realizing we have to make a decision and move in that direction. And it could be the wrong one and we can change, but I don't think there's any recourse to that. At some point, we do have to pick a direction and move forward.
Yeah, I really like that. And that's one of the things that I never fully embraced was the asking people for insights on what they do. And I could even say if someone's too scared to ask for that 15 minutes, follow look for somebody who is posting about the role that you're interested in doing and start engaging on their posts. Ask them questions, ask them clarifying questions. When you said this, what did you mean? Well, how does that look in your day-to-day job? Or how often do you encounter this problem? And now you are not just inviting them, but you're inviting their entire network and your network to chime in. And if you're adding those people who do what you think you want to do, you're going to have a lot of people in that realm. Really, people love to establish themselves as experts in their fields, and rarely do I put a post where I need help to understand something or ask a question on someone else's post or a clarification where they and 10 other people don't just join in wanting to have the conversation. So you can even stay a little bit in your comfort zone, just being only a tiny bit uncomfortable just by engaging in somebody else's content, especially if they're leaders or thought leaders in their field. I have some amazing product managers where I'm like, wow, I never even thought of that aspect of product management, and I'll just take notes. I'm like, wow, how do I incorporate this into my day-to-day job? So, yeah, I love that piece of.
Absolutely. There's a few adages that go around LinkedIn, but one of them is follow to learn, connect to network. So if there's somebody that you want to kind of stay in the shadows and you're not comfortable engaging yet, follow some of these thought leaders in the space. Follow people that do what you want to do, and also follow people who lead the people doing what you want to do. And you'll start to get more involved and start to learn some of the concepts. In tech, there's a lot of jargon, but you'll start to learn some of those abbreviations, like what is SQL? You'll start to learn about those things. And as you do, I think what that does is prepare you for those interviews where you can go in and use the language that these recruiters may understand or resonate more with. But yeah, follow to learn and just watch those posts. Small engagements on comments. Even, a next step could be the reactions, like, support, love, etc. Curious. A next step could be a small comment. As you said, what did you mean about this? I'm curious. And then after that, really connecting, and even when you connect, you can personalize the message and say, hey, I've been following your content for the last month, and I think it's super useful. How do you feel about having a chat? And a lot of people I found will engage with things like that.
Yeah. I love the word you used in what you're answering is curious. Like if we just lead with curiosity, very rare. I mean, rarely will I find somebody be offended by that. I remember being, and I think I turned off my curiosity many years ago when I was a curious kid. I always wanted to learn things. And I remember peers, like fellow fifth graders or whatever, telling me I was nosy. And I took that as a bad thing. And now I'm like, no, that is what actually makes me good at my job today is, if we're looking at something we're testing and we have engagement from users, and then it just drops off, I'm like, what happened? Like, why were they clicking and nothing? Like like, I just want to know who are these people and how do I talk to them? I want to know what made you stop. What did you not get benefit? Was it not clear? Was the communication not there? You know, it's like in one question leads to another question, which leads to another question. You can spend all day long answering questions, and part of that is my job is to sleuth and find and figure out. And then, well, if we're constantly hitting this, how do we build something where they're not constantly hitting that, or how can we overcome that, or how do we? Is it not intuitive enough? How do we build that better for our customers? So like that thing that was criticized when I was little is actually one of those strengths that I bring into a role today that helps me. So it's interesting. Like we have this backlog of things people have said to us that we form into our beliefs that may or may not even be true. And that might actually put us in the comfort zone, right? Because well, this is what I am and I can't be anything else because everybody has told me my whole life this is what I am. If you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, it's interesting because I also have felt that in moments where I worry. I'm a worrier. And I've been told, "Oh, you worry too much. You worry too much." But more recently when people tell me don't worry, I say, "Oh, I'm not worried. I care." So reframing that as it's not essentially worry I'm feeling. It's that I care about this and I'm concerned about this and I want to ensure that we do what's best. Um, so there are moments where I think all these traits that we have are somewhat subjective. Some people may see them as positive traits. Some people may see somebody who worries to be like, well, they care about things and they want things to go well. Where other people might, from their perspective, might see that as, oh, they're too worried. And I've always
Right.
found that it can be very subjective. So, you mentioning that, well, the traits that were pointed out as negatives are now allowing me to actually thrive in my environment. I think that does happen with people. I think it really depends on our environment and finding that focus and finding what it is we want to do and how can we leverage our strengths and our traits or where are those best leveraged? I think that's important.
Yeah, it was really funny when I was in release management. I can be very cynical, like, and I have to kind of guard against like not becoming a sarcastic, cynical, awful thing. But in release management, one of the primary jobs is to ask what could go wrong here, and I'm like, I got this. Like, but then it allows the team to come in and say, well, what could go wrong? Are we building safeguards against that? Well, what if this does happen? So like I was a natural risk bringer, to the conversation. And, and sometimes I felt bad about that again because of cynicism is bad. I'm like, not always. Like you have your risk analysis people because we need to know, is this going to break our customers from being able to use our product? We do not want that. And if that's the case, we have to make a contingency plan here. So, and I think some of that's from my military spouse days is because the government kind of decided what our life would look like at any given moment. And you just had to roll. You had to roll with it. And you could have a bad attitude if you wanted, but you still just had to roll with it.
Yeah, I think cynicism can be negative, but I think there is such a thing as healthy cynicism
Mhm.
or healthy skepticism. Those healthy skepticism, I believe, is a phrase that gets used. But when it comes to that, I think even applying that to our lives, when we look at things, well, I'm taking a step out of my comfort zone. What could go wrong here? And there is potential for things to go wrong. And having anxiety, my wrongs tend to be extreme, but then refocusing and what can go right
What could
here?
go right here? Yeah.
Yeah. And that can
And
really shift the mindset.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we are getting close to time, and I do have a really hard stop at 11:30 here my time. So I just want to take time and thank you for being here today and sharing these insights. They're amazing. I feel like I can make 1,000 social media posts off of the little nuggets of gold that you've dropped today. But instead of stealing all your content, I will put you on. I will publish the whole thing for people to watch later. But thank you for being here. Are there any closing thoughts on the comfort zone you'd like to that we didn't cover, maybe you wanted to highlight, and I didn't ask the right question, feel free to chime in. And
I guess my closing thought was, the topic was breaking out of the comfort zone, and that tends to be a ton of energy, and I'm going to break out and do everything. If that's scary, put your toe out of the comfort zone.
Yeah, tiny stuff.
Tiny little, say hi to somebody, smile at somebody, follow someone on LinkedIn, ask a comment. Hey, I'm curious. What does this mean? And just putting your toe out, we start to understand, okay, not so bad. Okay, now a little bit more. Now my whole, okay, now I'm stepping out of it, or that comfort zone has been increasing. So I think that's my final thought, is that breaking out of the comfort zone is not an action in time. It's a process of being more comfortable with expanding expanding the comfort zone, or that progression of toe, foot. Okay, now I'm out here. I'm gonna go 5 feet away. I think that's important to understand.
Yeah, I love that. And I could just relate so much. The very last class I took before I got my college degree was public speaking. And I had to take Speech 101. And I procrastinated that thing until it was actually going to block me from graduating.
Yeah.
And now I'm invited to speak at events and whatnot. It's just a testament of I had to get up there and say the 2-minute speech in college to lead to being invited to be the 30-minute speaker at an event. For I don't even know how many people will be in the audience. I'm not even going to ask, but because then I might go right back into my 18 or 20-year-old self going, I'm not doing it.
My journey is similar. I mean, the fact that I'm here today, I will be completely honest, this was absolutely scary for me. This was coming out of my comfort zone, but I had my oatmeal. I tried to breathe. And then it was go time. So yeah, I just really want to thank you for having me on. I love what you're doing. I love the ability for people to come and just openly talk and hear insights from others. And I think it's so important that we gather perspective, because that can really help shape our mindset. And with those mindset shifts, it can really start to help us move out of our comfort zones.
Yes, yes. Well, thank you for stepping out of your comfort zone to be here today. And yeah, I just appreciate all your insights. So thank you once again.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.